I was an assistant coach here at St. Joe's in football and baseball for many years, and I always wanted to be a head coach. And an opportunity came up to be the head girls basketball coach, and I took it. One of the reasons why I took it is because they had a lot of good young players coming up through the program, a bunch of good sophomores. And one of these sophomores was Janet Masensic. I had gone to a few games and I had watched her play, and I felt that besides the other sophomores, that Janet was a very, very good player with a lot of potential. It turned out that I was right. Janet had a fantastic career here. She probably was the first star of the girls basketball program that we had at St. Joe's. You have to remember, this is 1977, 78, 79. Girls sports really wasn't that big at that time, and this was the first time that we had a really, really good team. Janet was probably the biggest reason for that. She was the first 1,000-point scorer in school's history, and she led us to the 1979 state championship, which was the first girls state championship at St. Joe's in any sport. She had just a fantastic career here. She went on to play at Yale University, very intelligent young lady, and she had a good career there too. I remember Tom Collins and I, my assistant coach, going to watch her play at Yale, how proud we were of her. She was just the type of person that worked very, very hard, not only in basketball, but in the classroom. One of the things with that whole class, those young girls, when they came in, they really lacked confidence. And Janet did also lack confidence in the beginning. At that time, being a tall young lady wasn't a great thing. You know, they always thought, well, gee, I don't want to be tall, but I think as she realized that how this would help her, being 6 feet tall, she'd used it to her advantage. And she just worked real hard in her game and got better and better and improved, and then became very, very confident young lady. Going to Yale University was probably her greatest accomplishment. She was an all-state player, which was the first that we ever had here. Most valuable player in the league. She was most valuable player of our team. She did a lot of great things, and scoring 1,000 points was unheard of in girls basketball. The girls basketball program really has come a long way. They've since won another state championship, and when those kids first started, we were the second to last team in the state where the girls still wore skirts. My wife was the volleyball coach, and when I took the job, she told me we could use the volleyball shorts instead of wearing skirts. And I remember when I told the girls at our first meeting how they jumped up and down and were hugging each other. So I mean, we really came a long way, and Janet was right in the middle of that and had a big role in making that happen. The best moment is kind of obvious, I think, is winning the state championship. I mean, no one ever thought we were going to do that. Even the last game, you know, we played immaculate, and everybody thought they were so much better than we were, that it was a joke that we were there. It was lucky that we were there, and the girls they came through and won the game. So that was the shining moment. I was really honored that Janet chose me to be her presenter. I haven't seen her in many, many years. I'm really looking forward to seeing her and catching up at the Hall of Fame dinner. Janet, I'm just so happy for you. This honor is so well deserved, and welcome to the St. Joseph's Athletic Hall of Fame.
It is my great pleasure to introduce my son, Mick Tomey, as an inductee into the St. Joseph High School Hall of Fame. Growing up, Mick was a Trumbull kid and well known for his success in Little League, Babe Ruth, and Pop Warner. And when it came time for him to choose a high school, he selected St. Joe's in large part because of its football program, and he never looked back. At St. Joe's, Mick was a two-sport student athlete who pushed himself on the football field, in the weight room, on the baseball diamond, and in the classroom. Mick was a tough, hard-nosed, and very competitive kid, and he demanded a lot of himself both on and off the field. In football, he was fortunate to play for Coach Christy Hayes. Mick lettered for 4 years, was a two-way player, and played 4 different positions. As a freshman, he won the starting varsity place kicking job and was part of the 1984 state championship team. As a sophomore, junior, and senior, Mick was the team's quarterback, punter, place kicker, and safety. Christy used to say that Mick displayed all of the qualities that he looked for in an athlete, namely leadership, toughness, competitiveness, and unselfishness, and that Mick had displayed these qualities very early in his high school career. Mick was known as a high-quality quarterback with a rocket arm, and defensively he was seen as a safety who had great anticipation and really good hands. He was also an all-state punter and a really solid place kicker, and that gave him a lot of recognition. Mick won all-state honors in his junior and senior year, was all-conference for 2 years, was a Connecticut Post Offensive Player of the Year, was elected as a team captain, and was chosen as a member of the New York Daily News All-Star football team. In baseball, Mick was a talented pitcher and a rock-solid catcher. He played for Coach Jim Luchansky. He lettered for 4 years and was a member of the 1985 state championship baseball team. Mick started on the mound in his sophomore year. He went 7-1 and was a combination catcher and pitcher in his junior and senior years. While Mick was known as a really strong, very talented pitcher, his defensive skills as a catcher and his exceptionally strong throwing arm from behind the plate were probably his best baseball qualities. Mick earned all-state honors in baseball, was all-conference in his junior year, all-conference in his senior year, and a member of the New York Daily News All-Star baseball team. In the classroom, Mick had a really good work ethic and strong study skills, and that, combined with his athletic resume, enabled him to receive a number of offers from some very good colleges and universities. While Mick considered offers to play both football and baseball at the collegiate level, he ultimately accepted a baseball-only scholarship from Auburn University, where he could play in the SEC, arguably the best baseball conference in the country. While he was at Auburn, Mick lettered all 4 years, and at the end of his junior year was chosen to play in the Cape Cod League, probably the premier wooden bat league in the country, where he made the league's all-star team. After graduating from Auburn, he went on to earn his doctorate degree in podiatric medicine and currently operates a practice in Cary, North Carolina. My wife Sue and I are very proud of Mick and all his accomplishments and congratulate him and all the other inductees into this year's Hall of Fame class.
I've known Jo since the 7th grade. I knew she played tennis at that time, but I didn't know how good she was. We get to high school and she tries out for the tennis team. Her coach, Coach Green, didn't know how great she was either, and he immediately knew. None of us really know how really good she was, how great she was, because she just was very unassuming about everything. She'd show up at the party afterwards and we're like, hey, how'd it go? I won. Oh, okay, great, that's super. And we'd all move on until her career was over. And I looked back on it and saw the 4 state championships and saw her play in Miami. That's when I realized how great she really was. The tennis team at that time for St. Joe's was co-ed. She played #2 singles. So she had to make her way to the state tournament playing boys. She needed a 50% record to do that. Well, freshman year, she did very well. She got in, but she wasn't a high seed. And she ran through the girls tournament. I think she lost 1 set along the way. Won the state championships, and that's when everybody kind of said, who's this freshman with a 500 record winning the state tournament? Then she continued to play #2 singles for St. Joe's the remaining 3 years, but she did very well. She probably won 80% of her matches against boys, had a very high seed going into the state tournament, and she lost 2 sets her entire state tournament career. Her set record is like 40-2, and she's undefeated against girls, playing against girls 20-0. She won the #2 singles tournament in the NBAC championships, again, against boys, and it's just a testament to how great she really was. And she's the first person in state history, boys or girls, to win 4 straight state championships, which is just amazing. And to talk to her, you would never know it. She wouldn't mention it. She's probably forgotten about them, but we all remember it. And as we've gotten older and talk about the glory days, like, wow, you were the first person ever. That's amazing. No one can ever take that away from you. I had moved from St. Joe's to Miami in high school, and she came down to Miami for a big tournament, a big junior tournament. And that's when I realized how really good she was. Even though for that tournament, she was probably average, but this tournament had a lot of international players. That's when I realized, wow, she's a pretty good player. She was a good student, great person to be around, fun, happy, always laughing. But when it came time to play tennis, she was really focused in. And I used to kid her when we were in junior high, so saying, boy, I'd like to play you in tennis. I'd like to see if I could beat you. She's like, okay, well, you know, sometime we'll play. And when I saw her in that tournament down in Miami, I saw her practicing, and I never mentioned it again, because you could see how focused she was and how driven she was. So when she won the state championship her senior year, which should have been a crowning moment for her, they'd all graduated. Only people left in school was underclassmen, so none of the seniors really got to, congratulate her. Again, it was just like, oh, you won again? Oh, that's great. And no one really understood the magnitude of it. Of course, she never talked about it. She was used to playing tennis every weekend just about. Her and Brian Barker, who was an inductee last year, they would travel to tournaments on weekends. A lot of times when we were out just having fun, and they were traveling all through New England going to tournaments. And so it wasn't like she had a crowning moment that we recognized, because she always won, and it never dawned on us that what she had accomplished. And the induction ceremony is going to be a good night to remember all of that and really just take it all in.
The 87-88 team was a very talented team, an unbelievable group of guys. We had seniors, juniors, and sophomores all contribute in a big way to that team. It was probably the most talented team I've ever played on, but we also had really good coaches to sort of mold us and guide us in the right direction. And we combined the coaches that we had, not only my dad, some good assistant coaches, and the players that we had. It was a recipe for a lot of success.
Going into 87-88, we had 2 state championships, going on a possible third. Down the road, we had Harding High School, who had won 5 state championships in a row in L Division, and they were shooting for number 6. And I looked at my talent and my team, and I said, that's not going to happen. The paper was just killing us. Even though we won also, they were killing us saying that, Harding this and going for number 6 next year. Well, I looked at our roster and we were pretty good. So I said, I got ticked off and I typed out a note. We used typewriters in those days. We didn't have these computers. So I typed out a note, and it said, there will not be a 6th, okay? And that's all. So I folded it up, stuck it in an envelope, put a thumbtack through it on my board, and it was there the whole season.
Every position we had covered. We had ball handlers, very good shooters. We were really athletic, and we had Marvin as our center in the middle that just completely changed high school basketball games. Johnny and Carrie were wings who were super athletic, and combine those pieces onto one team who was disciplined, we were unselfish. It just made for a very difficult team to play against. That's why we had a lot of success that year. We had 5 starters, we're super talented, but we had kids who came off the bench and helped us in major ways that the guys we had coming off the bench on that team would have started for many of the better high school teams in the area. We were all very unselfish and really played as a team. And everyone played to off the other kids' strengths. Johnny and Carrie were great perimeter defenders and offensive players. I handled the ball a lot and mainly passed it to these guys. Made my life very easy. Marvin, we did all the work inside, and Scott Kreitler was a great defender. And the guys off the bench, Pat Petrie, Ward Petrie, Brian Kelly, were just great role players and did a lot on that team to make us so good. And clearly Doremus was the sixth man on that team as a sophomore, but I would argue was probably the most talented kid on that team. Doremus easily could have led that team in scoring in his sleep as a sophomore, but he had a specific role to play, he knew that, and he played it really well. Came off the bench and gave us a spark, and to have a kid like that come off the bench as a sophomore, you know that 87-88 team was pretty good. I would say the biggest accomplishment of that season was winning the state championship against Harding. Back in those days, that matchup between us and Harding was probably the most anticipated high school game, of the last, 25, 30 years back then. We hadn't played Harding in a long time. The newspapers had sort of created this drama that we were sort of avoiding them and didn't want to play them. My father moved up to Class L that year to a higher division, hoping that we would meet Harding at some point and stop their streak of 5 consecutive state championships. I don't think, no one's ever won 6 in a row. They were going for it. My father purposely moved us up to Class L to try to stop them from doing that, and that's exactly what we did.
We became a strong, talented program, and it seemed like every year we just continued the streak. Maybe not winning the state championship every year, but being fair with the members of my team.
A lot of these guys are very dear friends of mine to this day. We showed that if you combine talented kids and you're unselfish, you share the ball, and you do the right things from a basketball standpoint, that you can accomplish great things. And as a team, we did that. But I think the most important thing is that we have relationships to this day. I have relationships to this day with a lot of those guys that I played with, and those are relationships that I'll have the rest of my life. And we have amazing memories from that 87-88 team that we look back on very fondly.
5 young men on that team went to college on a full scholarship and got themselves a college education. I'm proud of that, that they all achieved something.
I'm going to talk about the miracle of Huntington Turnpike, because I think it was truly a miracle that we were able to do what we did in the time frame that we were given. Rich Darling was an owner of a trucking firm, a construction firm. He knew there was a need, and he had the heart to try to do something about it. The diocese purchased the land that we're on now in the late 50s, and there's 108 acres on this site. And then they built this school in the front of the land, and the land behind it was always restricted from the school use. So for 10 years or more, we just had no play fields, no athletic fields, except one, and that was very poor shape. They used to call it the Dust Bowl because it was truly that way. But I became principal in 1976, and I went down to talk to Bishop Curtis, and I asked him for land because I said to him, we need athletic fields. We're always on the road. It's not fair that the kids never have their own place to play. He heard me out, and then he said, well, I'll get back to you, which I thought maybe it was going to be a big no, but he came back with a big yes. That was one miracle, in a sense. And the second miracle was that the Merritt Parkway at one time went over Huntington Turnpike. Now it's going to go under Huntington Turnpike. So as a result of that, there was going to be a lot of fill. So I went down to the Root brothers, who were the contractors, and I walked into their field office in my clerics, and they said, what do you want, Father? Are you taking up a collection? I said, I am, but I'm not looking for money. They said, well, what are you looking for? I said, I'm looking for dirt. So what happened was I talked to the Root brothers. I said, why don't you visit the school, and I'll show you what we're going to try to do. So they came up the next day. I took them up to the football field, and I showed them what we were trying to do. And they said, okay, you can have the fill. And I said to them, well, could you deliver it? And they said to me, Father, you're pushing your luck. So I said, okay, you don't have to deliver it. Dick Darling was the miracle worker. He did everything so seamlessly and easily. It was a joy to behold. I think we got over 100,000 cubic yards of fill. and we were able to spread it over the fields that were to be fields and build up the whole place to what it is like today. So we have the baseball field, the softball field, the track, the soccer field, and then a practice field. And it was just from nothing, we had all these fields because Dick Darling put it together. And he was out there all the time supervising and making sure that things happen the way they should be happening. After lunch, when things were quiet here, I'd tell my secretary, everything's quiet, everything's quiet. I'm gonna go out and play in the dirt. So I'd go out where Dick was and see him do his thing. The enthusiasm and the vision and the skills that he had to get all of this done was truly amazing. And he did it very easily without a lot of fuss, and he just got it done.
Well, a good memory for me is my father used to come to the games when my boys played football and the girls cheerleaded and used to watch the game together. You see all the people that can enjoy it and use it, and you get a feeling of satisfaction. I had 5 kids and they all went through the school. And they all played sports, some type of sport, and used the facility. My father really got a lot of good feelings out of that all his grandkids, 12 of them played on the fields at one time or another. I would just say that I'm real proud of his accomplishments that he's done at the school and for the community.
I just think that the school owes him, can never pay back all the stuff that he's done for the school. Because if we didn't do that at that particular time, we would have lost the moment. It was a one moment where the bishop gave us permission, the Root brothers gave us the fill, and everything just went from there. And it was just an amazing thing to see. Somebody said to me before we named it the Darling Field, are you going to name it the Darling Field? And I said, if I had my choice, I'd name the school after him. But I don't have that choice, so it's the field. And he's doing it still, because when I built the extension to the back of the school, he was the one who did the site work there. So he's still helping out in very practical, reasonable ways. And it's just a joy to see him do what he does, and it's just a joy to know him as the person that he is.
Adriana is one of my best friends. I actually met her when we were about 9 years old. We were in the 5th grade. Sports has always been huge in Adriana's life, really from the beginning, right? Playing basketball, playing volleyball, track and field, all sorts of things, always moving. She's a very active person, very adventurous. I'm so excited that she's going to be coming home from South Korea for this event. And I remember when she met my husband, because he loves basketball too, so she challenged him to a game of basketball and really kicked his butt. So yeah, she's really good at it. Adriana was one of the maids of honor at my wedding. We always have a good time together. She's a very genuine person, cares a lot about her friends, cares a lot about her family, has a big heart, very adventurous. There's always something fun to do when we're together. We're always cracking up when we're together. I can't wait to see her. So Adriana was playing basketball at Boston College, and after that she wanted to continue to play and was recruited. She ended up going to Ireland, to Cork County, and played there for a few years. And after that she came home for a little bit, but then wasn't done with the basketball, so she was able to go to Spain and then played on the island of Mallorca, and then came home for a little bit, did some grad education, and then decided she wasn't done with adventures, so she went to South Korea and has been in South Korea for almost 2 years now, teaching English to children over there. And I imagine playing some basketball when she gets a chance to. When she was back in Connecticut, she did personal training for a while, and then she in grad school studied occupational therapy, so really just always wanting to help other people but also be moving, and that's always been really important to Adriana. She's definitely a person who has a lot of energy, so she, if you're sitting for too long, she's like, okay, we gotta do something, we gotta go somewhere, She really was able to balance in high school, to balance basketball with academics, family, all those things, which I can't even imagine, to be able to do all of that and to do all of that well. She's kind of that person who puts her heart into everything. She's committed to what she does, and I think she's really deserving of this honor. I'm really proud of her.
Doremus went to St. James Middle School, and he would play as a 6th, 7th, 8th grader in a league we had here at St. Joe's. So I used to watch him back then, and you could tell he had a lot of potential. He did a lot of things really well. Doremus came into St. Joe's as a skinny kid with a lot of potential, and he ended up leaving St. Joe's as a skinny kid, but it happened to be one of the best high school guards in the country. As a basketball player, he made everything look so easy. It was frustrating at times because you'd watch him go up the court. It was almost like he was gliding up the court, and it made every play look simple, and there was nobody on our team really in the state that could do some of the things he did and make it look so easy. So sometimes when I was a senior, he was a sophomore, we'd go against each other at times, and I'd have to knock him on his butt a couple times just to set the record straight. As a sophomore on our 87-88 team, he was the 6th man, and he easily could have been a starter.
But he accepted his role. He didn't expect, I'm the star, right away. That stuff came to him. If there was anything that young man could have accomplished within a team framework at St. Joe's, he did.
He scored, I think, 1,350 points or something, which I think my father told me put him number 6 in scoring at St. Joe's. And Doremus could have scored 2,000 points if he wanted to. As a sophomore, he could have led our team in scoring easily.
And that's why I appreciate a kid like Doremus, who could have been 2,000 point scorer if I turned him loose. Just a special boy, and turned out to be a special man.
So Doremus went to Siena. He could have played at a lot of major colleges across the country, but he chose Siena. He liked the coach, he liked Albany, and he had an unbelievable career, number 2 all-time leading scorer at Siena.
When he went to Siena, they still have, I'm told, posters up referring to Doremus, things that he set, records, pictures of shots that he made.
He then went on his senior year in the NIT tournament and holds the record to this day for scoring again. He had 174 points in 5 games. His last game had 52 points against Kansas State. Again, he just made it look easy, putting the ball in the basket. Doremus has always been a really respectful, humble, quiet young man. And it was an honor to play with him. I looked up to this guy. I looked up to Doremus as a senior when he was a sophomore because he was understated, he was super talented, but he was always humble. And that's one of the things I'll always remember about Doremus.
Jen Russell's my daughter. Started playing softball, she was 10, 12 years old. Jennifer was a hard worker. She wasn't always the most talented at the position, but she always worked hard. She always wanted to get better. That was the thing I think most, is that she just always wanted to get better.
Jen and I are great friends. She was actually just in my wedding this past year. She's my bestie. I met my husband here at St. Joe's. When we won states in 2006, he actually tossed me a softball that said, "Will you go out with me?" He threw me the ball, and I didn't read it, of course. Jen, asked me to read it, and of course it said, "Will you go out with me?" And the rest is history.
Jen was a good kid off the field, very respectful.
She is a positive person both on and off the field, and that positivity is really contagious. And even though she was the pitcher, and that seems like an important role in the game, she made every one of her teammates feel just as important. She's a hard worker. She wouldn't be where she is now if she wasn't a hard worker. She puts her all into everything, whether it's school, whether it's coaching now, or teaching.
Well, there was always a lot of drills. We had a lane in the basement where she would pitch. There was some damage to the walls. We would go down the basement, she'd throw, go through the pitches. She ended up playing on travel teams where she was always striving to be the best pitcher on those travel teams. She always was working harder. At the end of her sophomore year, They played in the state tournament against Littleton Hall, who had the Gatorade Player of the Year. St. Joe's ended up losing that game 1-0, but she went toe-to-toe with that kid for the whole game, and after that game there was people that said, like, this kid could really do something. She was different levels of all Connecticut Post all 4 years. Junior and senior year was all Connecticut Post, the first team. She was all New Haven Register first team, all Hartford Current first team senior year. She was Connecticut Post Co-Player of the Year senior year, and her junior and senior record is somewhere around 48-3. And naturally 2 state tournament titles and 1 FCI tournament title. After high school, she went to Sacred Heart, played at Sacred Heart, and she's the all-time D1 leader in wins, strikeouts, and innings. Sacred Heart had never gotten to the conference tournament since they returned D1, and then her sophomore year took them to the conference tournament. They won the conference tournament, went to the NCAAs, got an NCAA win, and then senior year they also won the NEC tournament and went to the NCAAs. So it was quite a run. It was a lot of fun. Being able to watch your kid play college ball at home, not miss many games.
My favorite memory of Jen and I is not just one memory, it was every ride home from practice. I didn't get my license when I was in high school, and she was my chauffeur, and we lived pretty close together, and so she would drive me home and we'd bump to her jams in her little old car, either Blue Lightning or Gold Lightning.
Senior year state championship, playing our hometown, Seymour. Seymour had won 77 or 78 games in a row, so it was a big crowd at DeLuca, 1,500 people. We got down, we came back, we were ahead 3-2, and the last out of the game was a ground ball to Jennifer, who threw it to her sister at first base to win the state championship, and that's just one of the best. That was really awesome. And now Jen's the math teacher, Jonathan Law, and a pitching coach at Sacred Heart. We still get to watch games, and I just want to say congratulations to Jen. This is quite an honor, her making the Hall of Fame here at St. Joe's.
Jennifer, I'm extremely proud of you, and it's been an honor to watch you transition from player to coach, and I love you.
Stephen was a really, truly outstanding football player, and I first met him when he came in as a freshman, and I taught him in class, and you know, we became very close. He was that type of kid. He was very close to my son, Brendan. He was a year behind him in school, but they were friends too. He was probably one of the best football players we ever had. A very tough kid. He was a leader. He was one of our captains. He was probably the most outstanding player in the state senior year. He just did it all for us. He played running back and he played linebacker and a little defensive back. We kind of put him wherever we needed him. He was kind of a jack of all trades.
When Steve first arrived on the scene with us, he played towards the end of his freshman year. He played a couple of varsity games. Right away, he was an impact player, and he remained that way for 4 years. He was the guy. He was the guy everybody looked up to.
He probably was the hardest hitting football player we ever had. Just a monster on the field.
100 miles an hour every play. After every game he was exhausted, and not from being out of shape, but from the effort that he gave, because every play mattered, every play was important. He had a desire to be the best player. He had a desire to be well liked by everybody, his teammates, his coaches, his opponents, no matter who it was. I think the way people gravitated to him was because of his performance and his genuine concern for the well-being of everybody around him.
One thing sticks in my mind. A group of the kids came to our house one night when they were seniors to watch film, and they were all in the other room having something to eat and watching the tapes. And Stephen left the room and he went into my younger son Jack's bedroom, and I found him in there on the floor with Jack playing with his little toys. And that always stuck in my mind, that he would take the time to do that. And my son Jack always looked up to him, and when Jack came to St. Joe's, he wore number 44, kind of in honor of Stephen. So that's the kind of kid that he was. and kind of the human being he is today.
He is now one of my assistant coaches. He has grown into his role from when he first started coaching. You know, kind of the way he played 100 miles an hour, and he coaches that way. He's learned to be a teacher along with it as the years go on, so he's very productive with his group position. He embraces his role, and our kids really love him and appreciate what he does, and they play really hard for him. You know, he brings it every day. He's ready every day.
He achieved All-State for 2 years, which is a remarkable achievement, something that with all the great players we had here at St. Joe's, not a lot of kids have ever done that before. He was captain, as I said, every award you could, most valuable player, and All-League, I think 3 times. He received a football scholarship to Villanova University. He was recruited by many schools, and I remember one day that Frank Solich, who was the head coach of Nebraska, came to school here to see Stephen. I was more excited, I think, than Stephen was. So I mean, just those things. He had a great career at Villanova, played there for 4 years, and then he went to the University of New Haven for graduate school and even played football there for a year. So he accomplished some unbelievable things in football.
The look on his face after we won a state championship this year, I think, was very gratifying, very satisfying for him. And coming back here to St. Joe's to coach and win something of that magnitude meant the world to him, and certainly all the years and the efforts that he put in for us. I think that's the greatest thing that you can see, is the look on somebody's face when they've reached the pinnacle of their sport.
And I'm also very happy that he became a fireman. Now, this is something that his dad, Paul, did for many years, and I had a feeling that Stephen might lean that way. And he's doing a great job as a fireman in West Haven. I know if I ever had an emergency in my house, I'd like him to be the one to come and save me. I think Stephen is so deserving of being selected to the Hall of Fame, and great player, great kid, great adult now, and Stephen, congratulations and welcome to the Hall of Fame.